and just be able to wrap up February in my family's album. I am going to make a bound album once I get to the end of April, and then I will probably go back to using just a 6-ring album because I miss being able to put page protectors in, but I'm still going to think outside the box when it comes to documenting my family's stories. The journal will be similar to my reading journal, where I make a cover and then bind it together using the cinch machine. So in this video, it's going to be super long, so I hope you have a project. I hope you have something to work on or a snack or something. But I really just wanted to wrap up February and move forward, and I didn't want to have to do process video after process video. So I want to be able to, like I said, move forward. So this is going to be a big video with several projects in it, and I will wrap up February. Let me show you a peek at what I am going to put together in this video. I am going to put together this hiking page for my husband and I. I wanted a way to summarize it. I also tried out documenting my kids this month, so I did a collage for my son. And this one already has a process video. Then I did my daughter, and finished up the month with just some photos of us on a hike. So that is all the pages left for February, and this is how 2 months is looking. And at the end of the video, I'll do a walkthrough for January and February. All right, you guys, I'm gonna switch to voiceover, and I hope you enjoy seeing these pages come together. All right, here I go. Okay, starting off with this heart page, I knew that I wanted to do something fun with it. So in Photoshop Elements, I was able to extract the heart shapes, make them about 5% bigger, and use them as photo mats for the different photos that I have. Now is going to come the tedious part, I guess, where I am going to cut out all of these different hearts. And then what I'll do is I'll take a heart and put a photo right next to it, and then repeat that process throughout this whole project, because I thought it would look better in the end if the story of the photo was right next to each other. Instead of, having the photos all on one side and then the hearts all on the other side. I'm also going to keep the scraps of this paper so that way I can cut out some butterflies. So I am going to put the next little section a little faster and add some music as I cut out. Now that they are all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and start assembling it. And it's funny, I did not realize that these hearts had loving like 1 through 6. I don't know. I think I knew, but I forgot. So I am going to try to arrange them in rainbow order, and then quickly realize that I cannot do it that way because of the numbers. So right now I'm just adhering the photos to each of the hearts, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't pick photos that would kind of get lost in the photo mats, and I wanted to pick the colors that would make each of the photos pop, if that makes sense. So now this is where I take all of it and I start to arrange it in color order, because I thought that'd be cool, red, the red, orange, green, blue kind of thing. Obviously, that's not the colors here, but you get my point. And then I'm like, wait a second, this has a number on it. So I will fix that in just a minute. I do wind up adhering down the photo of my husband and I, and I'll just have to rip that up. But in the end, it's going to come out to be a fantastic spread to kind of summarize all of our different hikes. So over here on the yellow, that's where I realize, okay, these have numbers on them, so I cannot do it the way that I wanted to in color order. So I'll just adjust and pivot, and I'll still wind up with a fantastic spread. So my husband and I think, went on 2 or 3 hikes during the month of February. So I just kind of picked the photos that I really liked the best. Like the first photo on the top left is from one of our secret spots. And then the bright green photo on the far right, that was like seeing the first bloom of the season and a bug buzzing around it. So me being the total like nature nerd, I was like, oh my gosh, first flower. And so I had to get a picture of that. And yeah, I love
loved it. We also saw some really old glass that had washed up. I'm actually just now putting that photo down, the green photo in the middle. You could just tell that it was really old because of how thick the glass was. So that was really interesting. Plus we found like a plate, probably one of those blue china plates. I think that's what it's called. So that was cool to see. And then I made sure to include a photo of us down in the bottom right corner. And I got another, tree blooming. I think that tree was the tree that was like blooming on the side of a hill, which was interesting. So I mentioned that I saved the scraps that I had, that I wound up with once I cut out all the hearts. And I'm going to punch out some butterflies from those. I figured, you know what? I love butterflies. I love using butterflies, and why not just save my scraps? And that way it creates kind of visual points of interest on the spread and allows your eye to like travel over the spread in different spots. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in a variety of different places. And then I will also add in some stamping and a little bit along with the journaling. So I love this idea of using up these scraps because what else was I going to do with this paper? I mean, I could always just throw it away, but the butterflies worked out perfect. I'm also stamping a few different sentiments like love this, just lovely, and wander. I think wander was actually from the Wander story kit, but it was just a really small stamped phrase from it. I also will stamp a few flowers. I think this is a stamp set from the Stories of Play, but I love that stamp set. It has like a leaf and some flowers on it. It's another one of those really versatile stamp sets that you can use for so many different projects, which is what I do. So I've stamped all of those different little phrases, and now I can go ahead and put down the butterflies. I'd also taken a digital stamp and turned it into a die cut, and so that's going to be my title. It says completely loving, and I didn't intend it to be for this project. I just had it in my stash sitting somewhere in my mess of a desk, and I grabbed it, and it's going to work out perfect for the title. And of course, I put it down by the photo of my husband and I, since that made the most sense. And now I'll glue down my butterflies, and I tend to only glue like the middle body part of the butterflies, because that way the wings can kind of be lifted up just a little bit, and that adds some more dimension as well. Now I can add the stories to my various hearts, and like I said, for this first photo, it's definitely our secret spot, and we love going there to see, the different flowers, and there's such a big diversity of flowers in this particular area. The next photo I already talked about too. I was geeking out about seeing the first blooms of daffodils and also a bug flying around. Oh my goodness. I am now to the point now with like hiking with my husband that I can identify so many different flowers. I'm like an amateur botanist at this point. Like my husband was showing me some lupin, and then it looked different. I'm like, that's a different kind. That's probably more of a bush lupin. And so yeah, it helps that my iPhone actually, when you swipe up, you can see, it tells you what the different plants are. And so I've now just memorized and know so many different plants, which is just so interesting and really cool. The photo down by the yellow, I just talked about how that's a favorite hike, and it's really nice to see everything in our area turn green, and with all the crazy storms that we've had. So that's been really fun to see how, our area is looking kind of healthy now. So love that. And then I just talked about how my husband and I love going on hikes and making that time for each other. And then that will wrap up this spread, and I love it. It's such a fun, unique way to document one story from the month. Okay, so now I've got the kids' pages. I'm going to start with my son's. And as you can see, I printed them to the size that I needed, but I wound up wanting to do some flip ups. So I'm just going to have to take the collages apart and then adhere them down onto paper. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I use the app PicFrame, and I've done a reel, like a tutorial reel on my Instagram showing how I use it, but you're able to do a custom size. So I I think the size that I chose was 7x9, and that way I can get a great selection of collages that I can use. And so the one I picked is a very big photo on the left-hand side, and then 2 smaller ones. And then the second collage is this one here where there's 2 photos on top and 3 on the bottom. And so I decided that using the same collage for both kids would work well and the best idea. And my son's photos lent themselves to the orange and green in the Stories by the Month kit, so I printed some blocks of paper for that. And then my daughter's, I printed kind of the coral and also the yellow. So I'm going to start with my son's spread, and I'm going to do a flip up for the photo down in the bottom, I think bottom right on the left-hand side. So I really love how this collage did a giant vertical photo. So I thought that that was unique and not something that you always see. So I liked that. And then I'm also going to use a journaling card. That's kind of another reason that I decided to take apart the collages and adhere them to paper, is because I wanted to have a spot for journaling and to be able to use up a journaling card, because isn't that the point, right? You use up all your stash. Find a way to use up your stash. So that's what I'm going to do. And underneath that is going to be a photo of my son and how he had joined a comp soccer team. And I know when you flip it up, you can always have like not only the photo, but like 2 pieces, basically the photo and then something else, right? I am not going to have something else. I'm just going to flip it up and you're just going to see the photo. Sometimes I add like journaling, or I add like an embellished journaling card, but this time I'm not going to add anything, and I'm totally fine with that. I did want to find a way to add some sort of movement and definitely add in the colors that I mentioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these blocks of color that I printed, and I'm going to punch out some shapes and then stamp some phrases on it. This is something I do a lot with my stamps, basically kind of creating my own pretend faux pattern paper. And for me, it's a great way to not only use my stamps, but also kind of just make it customized and play with my stuff, basically. I love doing this. So I'm punching out just little shapes, 1.5 scallop shape and then a circle shape. And I also have some veneer stars that I'm going to use as well. So in total, I'm going to make 4 different clusters. One on the top, one over by my son's main photo, and then I'll have another one over on the side, on the right hand side. So I'm going to stamp all the different phrases that I have. So for the orange one, I'll just stamp loving and then currently. For the green pieces of paper, I stamped just this and just repeated it several times. And you know, when you do this trick, you really can't tell that it's like faux pattern paper. It looks totally real, and that's why I continue to do this technique. I think Allie Edwards does this kind of thing too, where she has a tried and true method, so she just keeps doing it, which I think is great. I think all scrapbookers should do that. If something works for you, you should just keep doing it because it works, right? So I'm punching out another shape because I needed to do one more. I also stamped February, and that's kind of what I'm punching out right now. I wound up stamping a few of the Februaries and only using one. I decided just using one on the journaling card would work best, and I will add that in just a little bit. I'm finishing up the green circles, and then I can build all of the different clusters that I have. So I really love how this turned out. I know I didn't use like too much from the kit, but I found unique ways to use the kit. And I think definitely my favorite photo is of my son at the local Parks and Recreation Department, where he volunteers, and he does an absolutely incredible job, and we're just so proud of him. I'll also add in those veneer stars. I'm just going to do a few yellow and green, and then there's also some neutral ones There's also some different neutral wood veneer pieces, so I will use those as well. And I've got a really fun cluster up at the top of my son's head. I think I mentioned that before. And then it's just going to make a great visual triangle once I've built all those different clusters. And so I just picked my favorite photos of him throughout the month, and then I can do a bullet point list of what each of those pictures mean, and that will wrap up this spread. I'm just going to glue down the stars with my glue pen and then get started on that journaling. I am going to start off by writing how I love my son took that selfie when we were doing yard work. I actually told him, take a picture of your sister and I doing some weeding, and he wound up taking that selfie. So I thought that was hilarious. I also thought it was hilarious how he kept grabbing the free chocolate milks at school. So I took a picture of that. That's on the right-hand side. And my son had a great field trip to San Francisco with some friends, and he also got to go hang out with a friend, and he even made a fort with redwoods. All right, so I'm going to move on to my daughter's spread now, and I'm going to use the pinks, like the corals and yellows. I'm going to have one large color block on the right-hand side, and I'll also use the journaling card that says the story and do another flip up in the same spot as I did for my son. And again, I just cut up all the photos. That way I could do the flip ups. And again, I love the vertical of this collage. It really created a fantastic way to include a close-up of my kids. And also just being able to use this app and quickly make a collage and then quickly print it out, it makes scrapbooking so easy, and it takes kind of the guesswork out, and you don't have to use Photoshop elements to clip in the photos. I am just trimming down the journaling card so that way it fits the size of the photo that I had printed out. This particular journaling card had a striped border at the bottom. I'm actually going to glue that right back on top because I wanted to have that little pop of color down at the bottom. I am also going to add the pink corals, color block that I printed. I'm going to add that to the inside of this flip up. For my sons, I did not, but for this one, I'm just going to stick it right there. I could have used it to punch out more shapes, but with my daughters, I decided to go more simple. And honestly, that might have been because once I get to stamping the yellow block, I just really didn't like how it turned out. I was kind of frustrated, and instead of pivoting, I just left the yellow paper as it was and just called it, good enough. And I'll talk about that more when I get there. I grabbed my ruler so that way I can make sure that I have the left and the right hand side aligned as best as I can. So I'm going to put those down, and then I can start to work on stamping the February. So I have the last photo to adhere down, and then I will get out my stamps. Now, this is, the same technique I did with my sons. I've done it many, many times. I just use my matte printer paper, but for whatever reason, when I took the Distress Oxide scattered straw and I stamped right on top of it, it was doing all kinds of weird things. Now, if you know what it's doing, you can go ahead and leave a comment and let me know, but it was not stamping very well at all. And towards the end of the stamp, so like on the February, the B, it turned a weird color, like really weird. And I really didn't like it, and I thought about printing a new one, but when you go to print something like this, it's only like a small portion of the paper. So I'd have to work on making a full print sheet, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm just going to use it, but like I said, I didn't really like it because it was just turning weird colors, which is weird because I don't usually have a problem using this matte type of paper to do this technique. So it was weird to me. But I'm using it, and I'm just moving forward, and I'm going to use some die cuts to kind of like cover up a lot of it and call it good enough. It's documented. I have the photos. I have the story. This is just an extra kind of embellishment that I made. So it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. So I have a die cut that says These Memories, and I believe I made that in Photoshop Elements. I think I made it. I'm not sure. And then Gotta Love This, that's a die cut from the kit. And then I punched out a coral shape to tuck underneath and added a few wood veneer stars as well. I also have a really bright yellow word phrase sticker sheet I just got, so I'm going to use that as well. And then I'm just gluing down a few of the pink and yellow stars. Not nearly as many as I did for my son's, but that's okay. This one's just simpler and I'm totally fine with that. I grabbed a sticker that says Right Now, and I'm going to put that below my daughter's photo. And then for the other one, I put Remember This, and I'll glue it all down and I will move on to the journaling. So for the journaling, I said my daughter made a Titanic Valentine's Day box, and it was absolutely epic. And I taught her how to use like a spray can of paint, which she loved. And we love going to the park on the weekends. It's her favorite. My sister got her a sweater. It's up in the top right, and she just looks so grown up in it. And she let me get a picture one day to send to Aunt Sable. And there was a few days where she didn't feel great, and she also had some fun baking. And that's it. So moving on to this last spread, I wanted to take this large family photo and leave it large and cover most of the page, but do a flip up. That way I could include some more photos and also do some more journaling. I had a ton of die cuts that I had die cut and cut out and hadn't used yet, and they actually worked really well with the colors in the photo. So I'm going to use the grays and kind of the blue. You can see the die cuts right there. And I also have a die cut title, Story and Collect Moments, from the January Stories by the Month kit that I am going to use up as well. So I used a bone folder to fold the extra portion up at the top, and then I put it on top of this paper, and it's really bowing, and I don't know why, but I put some books on top of it to get it to stay more flat, and that kind of did the trick. I'm also going to lift it up and add a piece of paper to it so that way I can stamp and journal on it better. I accidentally glued it to the page before it was ready, so I had to peel it and then add that white piece of paper, because that'll make it so it's much easier, like I said, to stamp and journal and do all of that. So I'm going to add that, fold it, and then I'll have to do some hole punching, because once I add it, I need to, of course, add the extra hole punches. But using a regular hole punch works perfect for when I add another layer on top. I don't have to run it through the cinch machine again. So one of the die cuts that I had says A Story That Matters Right Now. I also had a gray February that I'll put up in the corner. And of course, that awesome title. I love this font. It's so good. I think it's actually a font you can buy, and I'm seriously contemplating doing that because it would be so awesome. So since the February was kind of a gray color, I decided to stamp out some flowers in gray and go ahead and fussy cut those. I also did an outline for the flower in black and the center in black as well. And I just love this color scheme, this blue and gray and then some black. It's just fantastic. I mean, it's mostly neutral, but it has that little bit of blue. I don't know, which shade of blue is this? Go ahead and leave a comment and let me know. But to me, it's like a teal, a blue-gray, who knows, but it's still very pretty. I am going to adhere down the collect moments, and now that I have finished out the flowers, I just need to cut those out. They're really simple and quick. It's another stamp set that I got when Allie Edwards was having a sale. It's like a one little word stamp set, but it had all these flowers on it, and it's perfect. It's such a, like I always say, a versatile stamp set, worth the investment, because you're just going to get so much use out of it, because it's just easy to cut these flowers. They're perfect. So I'm going to finish cutting those up, and then I can start to adhere everything down. You can see I had put my punch down to kind of flatten everything. So I make a small cluster up in the top where there's kind of some empty space on the sky with a flower and February, and then the chipboard piece. And now I can make another small clustered title section below the photo that says collect moments. And again, that title, love it. So there is even little lines below some of the letters, and they're just all different sizes. It's really cool. And I'll also add a blue heart at the end of collect, and that will make a really nice kind of triangle between the different die cut pieces. And I'll put a gray flower on the left hand side, since the right hand side already had a gray flower. And then once I have that done, I can go ahead and build the inside of this spread. This photo was taken on a hike, so I have several photos to include. When I originally designed this, I thought I was going to just put a really small photo on the front and then some more small photos on the inside, but I had forgot that there's going to be two sections, you know, because when you do a flip up, you got two inside sections. So I went back and decided to print one of the main photos as a vertical 4x6. So that way it was nice and big and it's going to turn out awesome. I do need to trim these photos just a little bit because I did 4 horizontal photos, one of like the eagle's nest and then the top of a hill and just a few of my people. So I'm going to trim those just a little bit. That way they're more inside of the page and they're not going to stick out too much. Plus I didn't want to have to put these photos over the holes and then have to punch holes in the photos. I just didn't want to do that. So I'm going to adhere the photos down, and I also have one more die cut that says love that matches that blue color. So I will use that as well right in the center. I love using up my die cuts and finding a use for them, and this blue color scheme from Ali Edwards was from a few years ago, I believe, but it's definitely a favorite color scheme to use in February and try out. So this is the photo that I went back and printed it as a 4x6 vertical, and I'll also use another die cut that says love this. Right now I have a blue heart and a flower, but I'm going to switch that out in a minute because I wanted the love this to kind of be my header for my journaling. And I will stick with using the gray flowers as well. I'll stick with using those, and I'll just put 2 of those and add in some journaling lines as well. So doing these collages makes it so quick and easy to get your pages to come together, and just using some die cuts and stamped pieces, again, it makes a really awesome page. And I just love thinking outside the box for these family stories, and I'm starting on March. I feel a little behind. I did a lot of analyzing, too much analyzing for February, but I got March started, and I'm excited to share with you guys next week the next installment, I guess, of my family stories for March. I just journal about how the kids were fantastic on the hike, and it probably helped that we promised them ice cream after. So we all had a wonderful hike, no complaining, and we even got to go all the way to the spot where a pair of eagles was nesting. So that was really cool. And I just love when everybody cooperates and we can go on a family adventure that involves being outside. So once I have that wrapped up, I can punch the holes on my flower and I will be done with this spread. And I just love doing the family stories like this, and I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing all these pages come together.
Hey everyone, back again. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of those pages come together. I'm going to show you just a quick flip through of these 2 months. Like I said, I am going to switch to a 6-ring album after April, but still stick with this format of thinking outside the box for our family stories. Okay, so I opened up with this vellum sheet, and it's not quite the same size as my journal is going to be, so I added some clear plastic to it. And then I got a great selfie and added that to start the album. Then I just kind of documented the first day, playing dominoes, going to a water park, and then you can open it for some more journaling. Then January favorites. I wanted to just find a way to document the favorite photos of the month and went with kind of a neutral color scheme, but just a pop of yellow. And then I'll also insert this card that is the journaling. Next up is the everyday page, and I decided to use the open story kit. And I tried out some of these pockets where you flip it open. And I also have this laminated insert to tell the different stories that are on all of these photos. Another insert is just the TV that we watched, and on the back is some photos of my kids with their friends. So that is that. And then we move into the last of January, which is all about a hike. So I used the Wander Story Kit and did a really large photo and some vertical photos there. Also included an insert for some more photos because I just couldn't decide. Finished up January with this large photo, and if you look closely, all these little like blobs, I guess, those are birds. They're in our trees in the winter, and I love listening to them. All right, so February, opening up with a photo of my target birds. Moving into using the XO story kit and just documenting all the things that we loved this month. And I tried a different type of story as well using this cut file, talking about the evening and how we love having family evening time together. And these are the ones that you saw put together in this video. The hikes and cutting apart this paper. Documenting my son using the app to make these collages, and then I just cut it out. This one was really fun. I didn't want anything to be too cluttered, so I just did flip ups for all these different